course.
How else would it be, right?
Oh my God, it's
I'm
gorgeous.
not sure why you thought it would be any different.
It needed a little fixing. She came to pick it up at 5:30 and made a little fixing. I'm trying to get it done so that she doesn't have to drive all the way back down to Napa to pick it up tomorrow.
Ooh. Ah.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Okay, so we're it.
are we ready?
Well, I guess I'll scoot over.
Yes, we're ready.
So that way.
Okay, welcome to the Open Space and Ecology Committee meeting, October 16th. I'm sorry we were late, but we didn't have a quorum, but we'll make up for it by being excellent and fast. Roll call show that Ross, Barbara, me, and Carl are here, which constitutes a quorum. And is there a move to adopt the agenda? Anybody want to move to adopt the agenda?
I moved we adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Adopted. Is there any oral communications from the public? Okay, moving on. Approval of the September minutes. Did everyone get a chance to cruise through the minutes? Is there any changes, or is there a motion to approve the minutes? Motion to approve? Anybody?
I hadn't finished reading.
I was absent, so I can't. Well, clearly says I'm absent.
So we didn't read it, but we're too responsible.
Okay,
We can just postpone that until next month.
Okay,
All
let's
right, thanks.
postpone that.
Otherwise we'd be making.
And the next thing is what we've all been waiting with bated breath, is our annual waste diversion update with Teresa Montgomery from South San Francisco Scavengers. Yay!
Love you, Teresa.
Thank you so much for having me back. I've been looking forward to this for a few weeks.
We've been looking forward to it for a few months.
Okay, great. Well, then let's talk trash. So I have a few slides. I'm not sure how much time I should really spend on the first couple, which are just basic history. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Okay, I take it it's the big button, right?
Forward button.
Okay, the big forward button. I can handle that. So our company's been in business since 1914. I love showing these old pictures because, for real, the company started with horse-drawn carts. And there were a couple people who rode in the back and sorted stuff as they went and tried as hard as they could to not landfill anything. Eventually went from those horses to trucks and carrying cans on guys' backs, and then to what we have today with these beautiful CNG-powered automated side loaders and front loaders and all that. Did you have questions?
No, I want to tell a historical story.
Tell it.
Okay, the day my dad got home from World War II,
Mm-hmm.
my grandparents lived on Grand Avenue, and the garbage man saw my dad and gave him a ride home.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
And that was
Wow.
South San Francisco Scavengers,
They were,
whatever they were called then. But he recognized my dad and said, "Hey, come on, kid, I'll give you a lift up the hill," from the
That's-
train all the way up to where my grandparents lived.
That's a fantastic story, and it's
Pictures.
a reminder that we're a family company with most of our employees living on the peninsula, many in our service area. Everybody has kids who participate in programs here in schools, and it's just still kind of a tight-knit family. It's a great place to work. This shows our sister company, Blue Line Transfer. So this is where, when people say, "Oh, I threw it away," my colleagues and I like to call this the land of away. This is where everything goes. And you can tell the sign in that top picture says Recycling Center Hours. So I want to point out that we still have a recycling buyback center. We're one of the only ones left on the peninsula. So people still can bring their CRV bottles and cans to us and get their deposit back. It really stinks that a lot of the replanets closed down and made it harder for people to get that deposit, but it is still possible. Many stores still take them back, and we still have our buyback. And then I love to show the picture of the sort line because many people forget that what they're putting in their blue cart, whether it's under the gray lid or the blue lid, or if you have one cart for even cardboard, all that stuff is going over a sort line, and for the most part is being manually sorted by hand. So I always tell people, don't put anything in that cart that you wouldn't want a family member to touch or see.
To clarify, so it's the same line for the cardboard line and the...
Oh, sorry. So cardboard, generally speaking, goes straight onto our baler, and we don't sort it.
Okay.
But stuff under the gray lid, the paper, goes over one dedicated sort line, and stuff under the blue lid, the bottles and cans, go over another. And we have people who are assigned to picking out specific materials from those lines. So anything you put in your cart that doesn't belong goes over that line, does not get picked, comes out the other end, and goes into a landfill truck. So you've sent it on a very expensive adventure, basically, if you've done that. And if you put something over there that's dangerous, you've put a lot of people's health at risk. So.
Yeah, I just want to really stress, this has been a point of discussion in the past. People see that the truck pick up the bin with the two sides and the lids flip open, and it looks like it goes into one hole. It doesn't. I've actually climbed up there myself.
Yay!
And looked in there and took pictures and videos of it. And there's a diverter, so the half that has the paper waste goes in one side, and the half that has the recycle containers goes in the other. And the other thing I just also really want to remind people, because these are all issues that we come up at home, do not put broken glass in the recycling ever, ever, ever. It's not the same kind of glass as container glass.
If it's a broken wine bottle, if it breaks when you put it in there, you don't need to pull that out.
Right.
If you break a glass plate or a glass drinking cup from your kitchen, or a Pyrex, or a Corningware, or a glass mirror, or a light bulb, you're correct. That is all a different type of glass. It can't be recycled along with your food and beverage grade jam jars and wine bottles and whatnot. It is different. Thank you.
Yeah, I just really want to stress that because I see people do that all the time, and it's like, no, you just wrecked the whole bunch.
But to be clear, too, if there is a broken wine bottle, say you put it in there and it breaks, or it breaks in our truck after the cart's tipped or whatever, the pieces of broken glass that go over that sort line, there's a part of our sort line that is a shaker screen that little things fall through, and those little things, for the most part, are broken glass. And we are actually able to recycle that. It gets downcycled into, I'm not even sure what, road base or, something low value. It doesn't get made into another glass bottle or jar, but it does get used. So it is okay as long as it's the appropriate type of glass. I'm going to move on. And this shows something else that is located on Blue Line Transfer's property, again, the land of Away. That top photo shows the front of our anaerobic digestion facility. If the big door on the left were open right now, you would see mostly yard trimmings. If you come back in, let's just call it 3 weeks, you'll see a lot of orange because there will be pumpkins in there. We know that by volume, about 40% of what we're getting from people's green carts is food waste and food soiled paper. But usually visually what you see when you open that door is green. You see grass trimmings and branches and those types of things. The material that we bring into this facility stays there. It's a 21-day process. While it's being anaerobically digested, we're creating methane gas, which is scrubbed and compressed and pushed into our trucks. It meets about, I think, 40% of our fuel needs, which is fantastic. So your food waste truly gives us gas. So thank you. And then at the end of the 21 days, we take the material out of the digesters, and I'll call it a pre-compost or a digestate. It still needs some more processing, but not as much as if we hadn't digested it. So it'll go off and take another several weeks to be turned into a soil amendment. I love this facility and what it can do and how it closes the loop. If people only put in their green cart what belongs, it comes to us and we're able to, do magic with it. And there's nothing that ends up in the landfill, nothing is wasted. So it's fantastic. Moving on, I wanted to cover some of the events. We started doing an annual Earth Day festival. I think we've done it 3 times now, and we open up to the public and encourage people to come and take a tour, peruse some information booths, talk to a driver, get into a truck if they want to, blow the air horn, do all kinds of fun things. We do in cooperation with the County Office of Sustainability. There's a compost workshop that starts off the festival, And each year we seem to be getting a few more people that come to that, and I encourage everyone to mark their calendar for next year. I don't have the date yet, but it'll be sometime in April, and we'll announce it on our website and our social media and through the city's social media and through our newsletters. So please come.
One of the reasons that some of us haven't attended is because it is the same day as our Habitat Restoration Day.
Which I think next year we're going to change ours.
Yeah, okay.
So
one thing
would
that
be nice.
might bring more people is if you also had a special bring your paint cans.
Well, the first Saturday of each month, the county offers a free household hazardous waste drop-off anyway at Blue Line, so that's always happening. And we are a paint care site. I'm not sure if you're familiar with the paint care program, but it's state-funded. Any retailer that sells paint takes it back, and then there's several other drop-offs, including Blue Line Transfer for paint. So we do take it really every day. So you could bring it for sure.
Just might be a good advertising point, that's all.
Yes, or drop-off or...
Yeah.
And then the event that we worked together on for the last 2 years that I really love is this compost giveaway to the community. It closes the loop even further because people can see that the fruits of their effort are coming back. You can see the picture from my phone on the right. It's actually a still from a video showing the 20 cubic yards of compost that were dropped here for the giveaway. I mean, it was beautiful. It was this steaming hot, super nutrient-rich, awesome stuff. So we don't make it at our facility. We have to backhaul it from someone else that does. But I think it's a great thing to offer the residents, and I'm happy that we've been able to do that. So again, this will be something that gets advertised via the city's e-blasts and website and social media, I think, and look for it again in the spring. This is an ad that I did early in the year in the Luminary. Love the Luminary. Please read it. There's always great information in there. I like to make sure that all of our commercial customers, our businesses in particular, are aware of recent state legislation such as AB 341 and AB 1826. They require that businesses who generate over a certain amount of waste separate their recyclables and their organics from the garbage and not landfill it. So we've been trying to raise awareness about those laws and then explain how we can help everyone to comply. For the most part, our businesses in Brisbane are on board, but there's a few that aren't. So we keep making sure that they know we're out there and that we need them to get on board. We also do a newsletter that goes out to businesses that has the same information. Now that video you were talking about, that's the bottom right. That's a still from it showing one of our split recycling trucks that services the split carts around town. And as you can see, it's got a 60-40 split. There's a definite vertical line down the back of that truck, and that's because there are two distinct compartments for those materials. So just like Michelle said, super important to only put your paper products under the gray lid and your bottles and cans and other recyclable containers under the blue. We absolutely keep them separated, and it really helps us to recycle more. There is no tolerance in the recycling world anymore for contamination. So if you put your ketchup bottle in with the paper and the ketchup bottle breaks and the paper gets covered in ketchup, then the paper is all trash at that point. They're not going to tolerate any food on the paper or any broken glass on the paper. So it's just super important. Yeah. On the left is a service guide that we created early in the summertime, and we mailed to every single family residence in Brisbane in July. So hopefully that looks familiar to people. It came folded in half, but should look familiar. It has a lot of great information. Kind of goes over all the different cart sizes that are available for trash, because we want everyone to have the right size so they're not overloading their carts, and then the raccoons tip them over, and then we have a litter problem, and then we want everybody to sort correctly, so that information is in there. So if you didn't get one of those, or you got it and you didn't realize it was important, you can find it online at any time, or you can call our office, and we're happy to deliver another one to you. Now, this is my own favorite advertising campaign. In the past, I've dwelled all on the what you're supposed to do, and not what you're not supposed to do. So this is a reach for me, going and telling people what not to do. And basically actually there's two ways of looking at this. I'm telling you to put these things in the garbage because they are garbage. usually I talk about what belongs in the recycling. So anyway, we've gotten a lot of response to these when we've posted them on our social media, and the city shared them. We've run these ads in the Luminary. They've kind of made it around even onto Nextdoor and some other platforms. They're on Instagram, and lots of people have asked questions. You know, the one in the middle, you see the top silk container, the red carton. And people say, well, that looks like a milk carton. I thought milk cartons belong in the organics. You're telling me to put it in the trash? This is a different kind. So people asked that question online, and we got the chance to address it. So a typical milk carton, when you look on the inside, is going to be white. Yes, it has a little bit of a coating, but oftentimes these Tetra Pak or aseptic containers are silver inside, and they're multi-layered. So they're quite a bit different from the ones that we allow in the compost.
Well, I'm really glad I don't buy silk.
It's a hard one. You know, people will argue that there are good things about these shelf-stable packaged materials because they don't have to be refrigerated. You can fit more on a pallet and in a truck for transportation. But they're not recycled locally, and they take a lot of energy and water, not to mention the fuel for transportation and all that, to recycle. So in order to recycle them, the carbon footprint is so huge that it offsets the benefits. So for now, anyway, it's really better to avoid those things. Now, somebody else will say, hey, I know those things are recyclable through TerraCycle.
Yeah, but you have to send them there.
Correct.
It's ridiculous.
So, again, I would prefer that manufacturers have a better design and that consumers pick the better design, even if it costs a couple more cents.
So in regard to this, I always say, when in doubt, throw it out. Don't pollute the recycle stream.
Correct. Very good point. We used to say, if you think it's recyclable, put it in there and we'll do our best. We can no longer do that anymore because the contamination that's accepted by recyclers is so low. It used to be much higher.
No more wish cycling.
Right. I really wish somebody else could use this, so I'll put it in. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. These are a couple other ads, different feel. They're a little bit more chock full of information, but I really like the Halloween message. The what's scary at Halloween can be compost by Christmas. I mean, if you think about stuff ahead of time now, if you're going to give out candy at your door, consider stuff that's not packaged in a bunch of plastic. Choose things that are in paper boxes instead. As much as possible, avoid creating the trash in the first place. And then, if you're doing a pumpkin, avoid glue gunning plastic adornments and stuff on it. Leave it natural. Cut it up for sure. Give it a scary face, but make it so it's still compostable. Don't put a bunch of stuff on it that makes it trash. And then remember, those seeds, I would keep them and roast them, because that's so good. But if you're not going to, and most people don't know what to do with the rest of the guts, put those all in that green cart. Makes great gas and great compost. Okay, here's my last slide. So what I really like to focus on these days is prevention. We need to prevent waste and litter. If we focus on those things and we have way less material to recycle and compost, we're all going to be better off. Costs go down. Everything is better. We don't have to worry about so much. And I added this line at the bottom, decrease variety. You might be wondering why, and I'd like to demonstrate what I mean by that. If you go to an event, street fair, football game, and you want to go order a soda or a beer from a vendor, what happens if every vendor can use a different container for that drink? You could imagine a place where you might get an aluminum can, you might get a paper cup that's compostable, you might get a paper cup that's not compostable, you might get a souvenir cup that you're supposed to keep and reuse, you might get a plastic cup that has compostable, 100% compostable written on it. You might get a plastic cup that says number 1 plastic on the bottom. You might get another one that says number 6 polystyrene on the bottom. You might get a red Solo cup. You get the point, right? You get all of these different things. You could even get a styrofoam cup. I hope not, but it's possible. And then people like you and I who then want to take that cup and recycle it if it's recyclable, we'll go up to a recycling station if there is one, and we'll think, okay, which container does it go in? I see this all the time in front of Starbucks, Pete's, and like people have the cup and they're like, I don't know, is it compostable? Is it recyclable? Where does it belong? So what happens is people like say up at I always want to say AT&T Park. Sorry, what is it now?
Oh,
Giants Park. If they
Tactile
had
park.
to put pictures of all of this stuff on their waste stations, you think people are gonna stand there and look through 50 pictures to figure out how to? They're not, right? They're just gonna contaminate. There's gonna be everything in every bin. So that's what I mean by variety. We have too much variety. And the one that's really biting us right now in the butt is the number one plastic. The recycling buyers that recycle number one plastics really only want water and soda bottles. And I have a theory on that. And that is other things that tend to be number one plastic, clamshells and other kinds of packaging, like you get strawberries in, and I'm trying to think what else. But sometimes you pick up a clamshell that's a clear plastic and you turn it over and it says number one. Sometimes you turn it over, it says number 7. Sometimes it says number 6. So if we were allowed to sort the bottles along with the clamshells and bale them up and send them to the recycler who only wants number 1 plastic, they're going to get a whole lot of number 6 and number 7 and other things too. And then they have to sort it and deal with it because they don't want that. It recycles differently. It's used for different things. So that's my theory. So it would be nice, in my perfect world, that if you have a clear plastic container, it should always be a number 1. That would make it easier down the road. So I guess what I'm asking for, in the future, maybe our manufacturers will figure that out, and the Plastics Council will figure that out, and they'll go to having fewer types of resin. I think I've mentioned this to you guys before. When you see the number 7 on something plastic, it just means not 1 through 6. So there is an infinite number of plastics out there. And the other thing is, human beings, I showed you the picture of how we're hand sorting. How is a human being going to tell the difference between a number 1 and a number 7? You saw these. I have 3 different types of clear plastic cups here. It's really hard for us. The only way we're going to deal with that is to spend millions of dollars on optical AI type sorting equipment. So that's my story for decreasing variety.
Awesome.
Of course,
like
what
that.
trumps that is this. Always have your reusable water bottle. And also another message that I would like to give is don't always believe what the package says. So many things, I bring this as an example, can't see it, I'm going to describe it to everyone. It's a can, or it looks like a can, but the body of the can is actually plastic, and the top is aluminum. So which is it?
Yeah.
Right? If this comes across our sort line, do we put it with the water bottles, or do we put it with the aluminum cans? Or is it trash? Correct. It's trash, yet it has the recycling symbol on it. And there are a million products you could find if you start looking that have a version of the recycling symbol on there that aren't actually recyclable. So sadly, the use of that symbol is not really monitored. Anybody can slap it on just about anything. So we have to know as consumers what is false. You got to read your recycling guide. You got to look at the labels on your own bins wherever you are, whether it's here in Brisbane or up in the city or at a baseball game or whatever. So, okay. That's me on my soapbox.
I really enjoyed your soapbox because I had never really thought of it from that perspective before, of that we need to decrease variety so that people who are actually, if we're if like the average person is tearing their hair out trying to figure out which bin to put it in, it's better for the people on the pick line, but they're still having to work entirely too hard at it, right? And that's money, that's time. If we simplified it for the consumer, then it would be also simpler for you guys, and we just basically need to not make it quite so crazy. And I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. The other thing is that, we work really hard at reusing plastic. I've had this bottle for about a month now. It's almost done. But, and the to-go containers, we run them through the dishwasher and use them a couple more times, or 3 or 4 or 5 more times. Sometimes we put the cheese in them so we don't have to use saran wrap. Things like that people can do. But it's really hard because it's like everywhere you turn, everything's wrapped in plastic.
It is everywhere.
Yeah.
I feel like we're getting momentum, though. People are starting to realize, I don't know if anyone goes to the Burrow, but they now have the bamboo straws. It's better to buy the reusable ones, the stainless steel ones, or whatever kind you like. But I love to see now that they have those, the bamboo ones, and that's just one example. There's so many great things happening with our businesses embracing these ideals.
Yeah.
You guys know about Yurtle? It's a new Brisbane business that has a really neat. I won't go into it, but
just
Google
tell us, what
see.
is it? How do you spell it?
They're Yerdle. It's on the other side of 101. Anyway, great business that's doing things to help keep. If you return something to an REI store and they can no longer sell it, it used to be that oftentimes those things would be landfilled. Yurtle's finding them homes. There's a lot to know about them, but they're just one company. Super excited to see where they go, and I love that they're here in our backyard.
Yeah.
Barbara runs that at her house.
I do. Before it was cool.
She has a front yard of free stuff, and she puts it on Facebook, and people come by and get stuff they need.
Yeah, a little area by my driveway. So you said there's some businesses that are holdouts. I don't want you to name those here on TV. I think that would be not useful. But can you generalize about what kinds of barriers they're facing? Like, why aren't they on the program?
And it's hard for me to comment too, because sometimes I only have access to my database. If somebody is collecting cans and recycling themselves, or cardboard and recycling it themselves, I won't have that information.
Okay.
I talked to one company today who isn't participating in our organics program, and I thought they should, and it turns out they're sending stuff for rendering elsewhere. It's kind of a higher, better use. So okay, that's great. So I don't know everything all the time. But I think that some businesses, maybe it's a space issue or an ick factor, or just don't have the bandwidth to train people. A lot of times it's just impressing upon them that it's important and they should try, and also realizing that I'm okay with baby steps. Sometimes you go for the easy stuff first. You say, let's start with a small container and just this right over here. Just train this one person,
Yeah.
So to anyone that's out there listening to this and hasn't gotten on board yet, please call and give it a shot.
Great. And then you also said that you're getting 40% of your gas from the anaerobic digesters. Is it possible for you to up that, and what would it take?
I wish. We are maxed out on tons allowed by the permit.
So it's the size of your permit. You can't increase your facility size.
If permit us for more, but it won't. Each of our digesters handles about 2 days of material,
and you can't put in another digester. You've got space limitations, I bet, like everybody.
Yep.
So okay.
But so again, I still want to harp on the reduction. A lot of people took out their lawns and put in drought-tolerant stuff. Those succulents don't need to be trimmed very often. We have a lot of ways to reduce yard waste. We certainly can reduce food waste more. And there's a lot of good information out there about, better ways to shop so you don't over-purchase, better ways to store. I like to remind people, keep an area on your fridge, mark it the Eat First area, put your stuff that's about to go bad there, and always look there first. Never put your fruit and vegetables in the back. Don't, resist that urge to push something to the back where you can't see it, because before you know it, it's be furry and it's too far gone. If it's in the front and you see it start to get soft, you still have a chance. You can cut it up and freeze it to make all kinds of different things, right? So it's a mindset for food waste reduction that we need to teach people. That all will help us to not throw. They say that Americans throw away somewhere between 20 and 40% of the groceries we buy. So, to start there would be a good place.
Yeah. Amazing.
I do have a couple of questions. The first one is I know there's the learning part about the sorting from the consumer's part. However, I was wondering if Scavenger has worked with larger companies, for example, Procter & Gamble, Coca-Cola, to understand maybe there's opportunity from the
We haven't
production
as
side.
a company by ourselves, but we are active in several larger organizations that do a lot of lobbying. And, I am hearing that I think it's Pepsi and Coke both are going to be slowly getting away from plastic bottling because they realize that it's harder to recycle and also plastic is downcycled. A plastic Coke bottle is never a plastic Coke bottle again. It comes back to life as, say, carpet or fleece. Versus an aluminum or a glass bottle can be an aluminum or glass bottle over and over and over again infinitely. So they're finally getting on board with that information, and through a lot of pressure through organizations that we're involved in and state legislator.
The second question is for cardboard with the increase in Amazon shipments.
Yeah.
What are you guys basing?
Known as the
challenges?
Amazon effect, right? Yeah, back when we delivered the split carts several years ago, I remember I can't remember what year that was, but in the 90s, if you'd come to our recycling place before we moved, we were in a smaller area, it was all newspapers and lots of phone books and catalogs, and that stuff, I'm not going to say it's gone away, but it's way down, right? Now you see way more cardboard. So the recycling carts weren't really meant for huge pieces of boxes, right? So it causes a little bit of a challenge for us in terms of, for the residents fitting those boxes inside the recycling bin, and then for us collecting them, especially if they're out loose, and keeping them dry on wet days or from blowing away on windy days. It's definitely a challenge, but we are still recycling a lot of cardboard successfully. So I'm hopeful. Given time, I would like to see the amount that we collect go down. I don't know if they're going to implement, more ways of using reusable packaging. I watched a video the other day about a company called Loop that sends everything in reusable packaging. Like if you get there, you can buy, they have several different manufacturers of, say, shampoo. So you go to their website, you order whichever shampoo, it comes in a reusable container in a reusable box, and then you ship back the empty one and they refill it and send it back, and there's no packaging waste. This is happening on a small scale, but I'm waiting to see if ideas like that catch on. Maybe in the next several years they will, and then we won't have as much cardboard coming to us.
So what does the cardboard turn into? I mean, is it returned back into cardboard, or is it turned into something else?
Paper is downcycled a little bit like plastic. I like to say that paper has 9 lives, just because it's easy to remember. It's not exactly true, but the first time you cut down a tree, you have these big, long, strong fibers, and you can make, a really heavy-duty box. Each time you recycle it, the fibers get shorter and weaker. So eventually you go from maybe a box to a piece of notebook paper to newspaper to toilet paper or tissue paper, and then maybe it's compostable but not recyclable anymore. At least most of the paper we use in this country is coming from sustainable growth, which is good, but we could stand to use less paper, less cardboard.
Mm-hmm. Definitely.
I do like the aluminum and glass better. It's just infinitely recyclable. But still, a lot of that doesn't get... if you look outside of the greater Bay Area in California, there's a lot of that that's still being landfilled.
Oh, yeah.
Resources, people. Didn't anybody watch WALL-E?
Yeah.
That's actually a fantastic movie for that.
It really is. I don't I try not to dwell on that and be all about, death and destruction. But it's a good reminder of what it's like to go the wrong way.
It is really hard because, we're facing such a crisis on this planet. But you still have to really work at the everyday, because if we don't, we just go, we can't solve it. Well, then we're definitely not going to solve it.
Mm-hmm.
So I really appreciate the work that you do and your company does to help eliminate that, and that so much less goes in the landfill than used to.
So what the stuff that is actually just trash and can't be processed any further, which landfill does that go into?
Ox Mountain. Do you ever go Highway 92 towards Half Moon Bay?
Uh-huh.
It's on the north side, just before Lemos Farm. If you blink, you miss it.
I was
There's
just there.
one driveway.
A couple days ago.
And it goes back into the canyon there. It used to be a quarry, so somebody made a hole and we're filling it.
We don't incinerate anything around here. I know in Europe it's common that once the thing finally is, if it's something that can be burned and you can't do anything else with it, they incinerate it and use it to produce power.
There's only 2 incinerators in California that I know of. The closest one is, I want to say Modesto? No, Modesto, I think. Anyway, a minimal amount of stuff in the Bay Area does get incinerated, but not much.
There's a small percentage of stuff that you just can't do anything else with, really.
It was definitely a great debate in Brisbane some years ago because they wanted to put an incinerator out.
On the Baylands?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I could imagine that wouldn't be a popular idea.
No.
Well,
Right.
I mean, you have to have a lot of emissions controls on those.
On a positive
Makes it
note,
expensive.
I see all the time young people, super bright engineers all over the world coming up with technology that will clean up the Pacific garbage patch, that potentially could go and mine stuff that's been thrown in landfills. The technology to clean up our mistakes is there, but until we learn how to, I like to say, turn off the faucet, until we stop creating the problem, it's not going to do us a lot of good to clean it up because we're just going to have to keep cleaning it up. So as soon as we turn off that faucet, it's not like it's too late. That's what I tell all the kids. Don't give up. It's not too late. There's all kinds of great ideas and technology that will work. We just need to change our ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've come back to using wax paper.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely compostable. Wax paper, parchment paper. Get away from the plastic.
Yeah, the
Ziploc.
plastic wrap.
I invite you anytime something comes up, if you have questions, email me, or you can. It's really easy to remember, info@sssfscavenger.com. You can email questions there or go onto our Facebook page, and we're pretty good about responding quickly to people's questions. So use us. And that's all I got.
Okay.
I think usually you have some statistics about Brisbane's.
You're at 76% diversion. Last year, I think we reported 79. So it fluctuated a little bit.
Fluctuated the wrong way.
It's still really remarkable.
Yeah.
But I do want to, keep our eye on it. I always talk about when we're getting ready to do construction and everything, be mindful because, residential waste doesn't weigh a lot. Mm-hmm. Construction and demolition waste does. Mm-hmm. So we're going to want to just keep our eyes on that and make sure we handle everything responsibly, and we should still be in a pretty good place.
Karen, when people get a demolition permit, does it require them to recycle?
Yeah, I think it's 50%, and I don't know if that's our own ordinance or that's state, right?
You have your own ordinance, and then if we take C&D loads, construction and demolition material loads, and guarantee 65% diversion. So, and if somebody gives us a source-separated load, meaning they give us a load that's only clean wood or only clean scrap metal, then we recycle 100% of it. So most of the time when people are pulling permits, city sends them to us. We give them all the information, make sure they get the right bin, and can maximize what they do, and it seems to work pretty well. So
I just heard you say something that I didn't know about. And you're talking about the something sorted loads, the
source separated
loads. Does that mean that construction site then has to get multiple bins?
Yes.
And does that cost more, or do you get smaller bins? Or
actually, some of the source separated stuff we have lower prices to take.
Okay.
So it does save. And what I find is when you're doing construction or demolition, oftentimes at a particular time in the job, you're generating only one type of material. So often, even if they only have space for one bin, it still works.
Okay.
But yes, it does require that they give it some thought, and when possible, they have a bin just for the stuff that they know can be recovered.
Okay. And so you recover wood, you recover metal. What other sources what other things would you separate for C&D?
Dirt, rock, concrete.
Okay.
Aggregates. Scrap metal, wood, cardboard. Those are the main ones.
Okay.
Have you developed bins or dumpsters that are compartmentalized so that you could, for space-challenged places, you could have a bin that had a separator in it?
We haven't, because we haven't figured out how we would unload it. Even if they could load it, unloading it at our place to keep it all separate would require lots of different spots for material and the labor to do it. So it's pretty difficult. But we do offer smaller bins. So if they know they're only going to have, carpet's another one that we recover. If they know they're only going to have a little bit of something, we'll work with them, give them, a smaller dumpster and figure it out. But no, we don't have any divided bins. It's a good idea, but we haven't been able to figure it out. And I haven't really seen it in practice elsewhere either. It's not to say no one has them, but not that I know of.
Okay.
Doesn't seem like that'd be that hard.
Well, but how do they dump it? I mean, normally when you pick it up, if you pick up a bin, it's thrown into something.
Yeah,
That something would have to have a divider.
The back.
Yeah, but if it had a divider, 2 lids, and 2 ends, you could open one half, dump it, put it down, turn it around, and pick it up and dump the other half.
You're brilliant. That's not a bad idea. I could see where it could be
The second one
just a
was-
divider down the middle
Yeah,
would potentially
and 2 halves.
work.
And then lids on each half, so that you could clamp the lid shut when you dumped one half. Then you set it down, pick it up the other way, and dump the
But
other
the
way.
lids are normally plastic, though. They would just fail if something hit it.
No, I'm talking a steel dumpster, steel lids that you would be able to lock down.
It's an interesting thought. The next time I go to an equipment show, I'm going to look.
Yeah, bring it up.
Yeah,
Be an innovator.
maybe.
But so far, so good. We haven't
Yeah.
had too many problems. And when we get mixed loads, we do have a sort line for mixed loads where we put it over a sort belt and we pull out some of the obvious stuff too. So
I had a question about something that I didn't see on the residential recycling guide. Cooking grease and oil, is that just green cart, or is that something that was...
So if you only have a little bit, I would say let it solidify in the pan and then wipe it out with a piece of newspaper or a piece of
Green
paper
waste.
towel and throw it when it's somewhat solid into your organics cart. But if you're deep frying a turkey, you need to wait till it cools, pour it back into a jar, and then deliver it to Blue Line. We take up to 10 gallons a day, I think, and I want to say it's $1 a gallon, or don't quote me on that. There is a charge to take it, but we will take it liquid.
So you can't put it with the motor oil?
No.
Mm.
I know that would be a nice thing, huh? No, but we don't do it that way.
Okay. Thank you so much.
You're
Did you want to
welcome.
introduce your friend and show us your toys?
Oh yeah, well I brought props. In fact, actually I brought him to remind me, the raccoon, to remind me that, we know that raccoons continue to be a problem here. And so we continue to stock a small number of carts that have what we call gravity locks. So there's different versions. I think we're on our 3rd different one that we're trying now. So someone calls us and says, you know what, my organics cart or my garbage cart is constantly tipped over, and it's not me, it's the crows, it's the raccoons, it's whatever. And we'll say, are you willing to try one of these special carts with a gravity lock lid? And I call it gravity lock because there's no actual lock. It's either a turn or a strap that we have to, when you open the lid, you have to undo it and then you have to redo it, or it clicks on its own. But when the
It's upside
truck
down.
tips it, the driver doesn't have to get out of the truck. It automatically releases when the cart is tipped. So we have some of those that we can offer people that are having repeat problems with raccoons.
Oh, can I sign up now?
Call me.
Okay.
Yeah. I think there's one. I don't believe we can put them on a 20-gallon cart. For whatever reason, there's not enough working room for the lock, so it's only available on the little bit larger ones. But in theory, the 20-gallon shouldn't tip over. They have a lower center of gravity. But, these guys are pretty crafty, so.
No, they managed to tip ours over and slide it all the way down the driveway, but we keep a bungee cord on it, so it didn't get anywhere, but they migrated it. It was quite impressive.
They're crazy. And then the other thing to keep in mind is when you put them out, if you can put them out with room around them, they figure out how to climb from one to another. So when the cart is freestanding on flat ground, they're actually harder for the raccoons to get into than if you put all 3 of your carts too close together. I don't know how they do it exactly, but they have better luck when the carts are together.
If you'd like to see how they do it, you can come to our house.
Yeah.
Then my other props that I brought really are just, for displays when I table at events. I can't really bring full-size carts all the time. So I have my little minis, and they have little samples, dollhouse size samples of what belongs inside. So this, this is a bottle of probably wine or something. I don't know. Anyway, I have this, and I brought it just because it's fun. Sometimes to engage kids in talking, this is a little less intimidating than the full-size stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why they're here.
Thank you so much, Teresa. And
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for coming.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to talking to you next time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Good night.
Night.
Okay, the next thing on the agenda is discussion of street trees. And I actually put that on the agenda because I'm concerned about our urban forest here in Brisbane and the assault on it. And basically, I've been horrified a couple of times in the last few weeks, since our last meeting, about what I consider to be large, major trees getting cut down without what I would consider to be really any involvement from the people, other than the people who wanted it cut down. And so I think that, especially for our street trees that are on city property, we should have a really strong review process on those. What really brought it to mind for me was on Monterey Street at the intersection of Visitation Avenue. The first large tree on the west side of the street got taken down because it was a tree that was some kind of eucalyptus that put out nuts and berries or whatever, and somebody tripped on it. And
Brisbane box.
Brisbane box.
Okay.
It was a Brisbane box? The first one or the second one?
Both of them.
Because they didn't look like the same kind of tree.
With the seed pods. The hard.
Yeah.
It's like the top of an acorn.
So then the big, beautiful, spread out, like 35-year-old one on the other side got taken out as well a few weeks later. And
Guess I'm going to have to go walk up Monterey.
I just feel that was tragic. And when we planted those trees, this was brought up. I didn't think that we should plant the Brisbane box, even though it was named Brisbane. Everybody thought that was cute, but it wasn't cute. But we've invested a lot of time and energy into these trees and having an urban canopy to, not just beautify the city, but protect it from, heat and other things. And I just feel like we don't do enough to take care of our street trees, even though we do more than we used to. I mean, we do the watering that we did to save them during the drought. But I also feel like on large trees, the other tree that I'm really, really upset about right now is the one at 28th and 30 Plymouth Street, which is being taken out. And that is a huge, huge tree.
Is that a street tree? Or is that a...
It was a tree. The tree was on the empty lots where the community garden was. And one of the large trees there got taken out. And the other one, we went to Great Lakes to preserve it when they built the Habitat for Humanity housing. And it was the largest tree, canopy tree in our whole downtown central Brisbane area. And
I think I know the one you mean.
And it's now...
It's on the back of the Plymouth lot?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, right across from the park.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's horrifying to watch that tree come down when I feel like that didn't have to happen.
That's on
private property.
But it was Habitat for Humanity property that was city owned, and we went to great lengths to save that tree.
Yeah.
So
the property was sold, or the property still city owned?
I don't know the actual disposition of Habitat
It's
for
not-
Humanity property.
I don't think it's city owned anymore.
Yeah, I thought.
Yeah, that goes into private hands, but the tree should have been, what do you call it?
Assessed?
No, I mean, I think there should have been a maintenance agreement attached to the tree so that people had to continue to take care of the tree when the property was transferred.
Instead of, paving over the roots for parking and
Yeah.
now getting rid of it. And it's a concern. We also lost several trees up by Firth Park.
Mhm.
And,
That we weren't supposed to.
pardon?
Sorry, I have good news about those. The trees are not there, but there was a fine, and there's
Yes.
a fund to replant trees. $1,000
good.
per tree.
Good.
And that's good, but
Not enough.
that's $1,000 to replant a tree and 30 to 40 years of time for it to mature to the level of the tree that was removed. And that's not good.
Right, those were eucalyptus up by Firth.
Yeah, they were. And although they're an important part of the urban canopy,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as worried about that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you forget something, Teresa?
Oh.
Oh, we thought you left the raccoon.
But I mean, part of the problem was that the planning commission, because I went to that planning commission meeting, and they asked to take out a certain number of trees, and they were granted a certain number of tree removal permits, and it was decided that the rest of the eucalyptus trees could stay for whatever duration, and then the builder went chainsaw happy. Apparently,
Well, they got fined, so.
they got
And-
fined.
Yeah,
but-
and the fine is a small price to pay to replace those trees that took years and years to grow. And the other part of it too is that a lot of times we grant
Okay.
the city grants variances for different tree removal for a property and they supposed to replant another tree after and there's no follow up on those variances.
Mm-hmm.
There's no
Maybe-
follow up.
I'm ignorant on this. Do we have any ordinance, anything on the books about tree maintenance on private property?
We do now. The new tree ordinance requires that trees be maintained. Gosh, I wish I could remember the exact language. But if a tree is required to be replanted as a condition of another removal or of private development thing or something, then it's covered by a tree maintenance agreement.
Okay.
And if it's an existing tree, they're also sort of limited in what they can, they can't just hack at
You
it.
do need a permit to remove a tree.
On private property, yes.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
okay.
Yeah.
Making sure.
And
But after a certain size, correct?
Yes, not until it's 30 inches. And actually, I had some suggestions for City Council at the last City Council meeting because, as they declined, the city, OSEC had recommended that we reduce the size of protected trees, and City Council opted not to do that. And I just think that means potentially we're going to have a bunch of 29-inch trees taken out without permits, but we'll see.
And that's circumference, which is like
Yeah.
9 or 10-inch diameter,
Yeah,
30-inch diameter.
but it takes a
Covers a
long
lot
time
of-
for some trees to get to that size.
yeah.
There's
So,
a decent number of trees in town, though.
And for instance, there was a property on Humboldt Road that was split so that they could build a second house even though it was non-conforming, and they took out an oak tree and it was supposed to be replanted, and there's no evidence that that's been replanted.
mhm.
And it was never, we don't follow up on the variances that we grant.
Right. Well,
So what's
I don't want to
the
say
point?
right. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was going to say I think it's okay that you ask.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a certain amount of citizen enforcement. I believe Ken does follow up at a certain date mark, but or Ken or his somebody on his
Yeah, and
behalf.
Let's say he's following up and they don't respond. He
Yeah.
can't physically force their hand. There's a process that he has to go through.
Yeah, and sometimes it may be there 6 months later and not 1 year later, and he can't keep going back and checking forever.
But-
So I think it's going to be somewhat on people.
Yeah, I also don't think that it should just be one person who makes the decisions. I think it should be reviewed, the tree permit cutting.
Yeah, trees that get removed in the public right-of-way are supposed to be noticed, and I know that there was one taken out just down from my house on my block It potentially did need to come out. It was sort of crowded between two other trees, but it was not noticed. I mean, I walk by it almost every day. I'm pretty sure if it had been noticed, I would have seen it.
I just feel like we need to take better care of our urban forest.
I don't know about the one, but with regard to these ones on, is it Monterey, a visitation?
Monterey.
I went and looked myself to make sure that they were noticed because, this had been right after the ordinance had been adopted. We'd had long discussions about it, and I heard these trees were being taken out.
Yeah.
When you notice that, though, who are you noticing? People who live 100 feet? I mean, I drove by that tree every day,
No, it's just on the tree.
I didn't see
it's just
anything on the tree till I saw them
tack
cutting
the
it
paper
down.
Yeah.
Because I drive by it. I don't walk by it.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess what Michelle's saying is that our system isn't perfect, and without blasting anybody, we clearly have some things that we still need to work on.
well, but we do still have, compared to a lot of at least other areas I've lived in, we do have a lot of trees. So we are at least not as bad as some other areas. So I think we have room for improvement, but it's not as dire as some of the other
I think
areas around here.
I've lived here 17 years, and there's noticeably less tree cover.
Okay, within the area.
And I don't think it's a matter of whether they're better or we're better. It's here. That's what we're concerned about. I don't want to compare us to other places. That's other places.
No, I know, but what I'm trying to avoid is spending a lot of energy trying to fight people with what they can do on their property, and then sort of hitting that point of diminishing returns where they're just going to kind of do what they're going to do. And we have a mechanism for fining them, and we're doing that, and we're penalizing them and discouraging them from being irresponsible. I guess maybe I'm just not sure what else we should be doing to make that better. Aside from encouraging the planting of more trees, which I think is always good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the tree ordinance subcommittee should have had more than 2 meetings. Because I was really looking forward to, actually trying to dig into the issues and doing creative thinking and creative problem solving, because I do have respect for private property rights.
Oh, so I think the problem is they're done creating the tree ordinance is what it is?
Yeah, it was at City Council. It was City Council approved it last meeting.
Got it, okay.
So that's kind of, but I said right from the beginning, I think we're going to need to revisit it sooner rather than later.
No.
And certainly how we decide which street trees get hacked away.
There's one that was taken out on visitation, too. That was a couple months ago, my jaw dropped, and I meant to ask.
That's what I was talking about.
On Monterey or on visitation?
Monterey and visitation. It was on Monterey, but it's the corner of Monterey and visitation.
No, there was one on visitation that was taken out.
A redwood ash died and it needs to be replaced.
Okay. I didn't notice it, but okay. You say so.
I'm not sure what one you're talking about. You guys just...
Well, there's one that's before the library. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's about a block down from the library. It's going to be near Monterey, but it was very much in the middle of the block.
Oh.
Outside of the apartment building.
Was it a redwood ash?
It was one of the street trees, one of the...
Yeah, that are all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be replaced.
Okay. And there's also a dead one in front of one San Bruno that was taken out years ago and still not replaced.
Yeah, I think that's their requirement if I remember right.
Yeah.
Whose requirement?
One San Bruno.
Mm-hmm.
To have the tree removed or to replace it? Then why hasn't it been done?
I have nothing to do.
Karen's just in the middle.
I'm not asking you
specifically.
Specifically. It's the generic, why hasn't it been done? Yeah. This is where we need to close the gap on what we say is going to happen and then what we enforce that happens.
Well, that's just a matter of enforcement then. So they already, legally, they are supposed to replace it. It's just the enforcement that's lacking.
And that's what I understand, what I recall.
Okay.
I'm not, that's what I think I...
So we need a method for following up and replace and enforcement.
Well,
I think that's going to maybe come down to us as citizens, at least until we can rewrite the tree ordinance yet again, to say, drop Ken a note and say what happened. And maybe I'm not picking out any particular owners, but maybe there's owners out there who gave Ken a song and dance, and then he's like, okay, I'm going to check back in 6 months, and it falls off the calendar, and Because that happens to me. I mean, I can't. There's only so many times I can call back my stupid welding friend before I start forgetting and get really bored.
All right. Well,
This is true.
what do you suggest, Karen?
Well, I also want to throw out, this came up in our green team meeting about street trees, and it came up when we first met about the private tree ordinance. Barbara was asking about street trees, and we talked about two approaches, and one would be recording every tree that comes out and having that in one certain file, or doing an urban forestry plan every 5 to 7 to 10 years that tells us really what we need and what's changed and where we should plant trees. And staff is of a mind to do an urban forestry plan. So we had one done. It was back in 2007, but it focused a lot more on wildfires and what needed to be, if anything needed to be thinned or trimmed or whatever.
Safety, yeah.
So we're at the point, and I can say that I was told that we can get that updated. The green team is asking for that to happen, and then we'd have this overall plan that would tell us what we need to do, where we need to plant, kind of guide that.
Yeah.
That's
and
good.
then
I thought we were already working on the new tree inventory. I thought that was already in progress.
we applied we went
Okay.
together with the county for a grant. And
Okay.
we never heard back, which we think means we didn't get it. So we're going to look into it ourselves, and we're going to ask council for fun, see how much it costs, ask council.
Yeah.
Get out of
That's
operating.
just street trees or also private trees?
Street trees,
Street
public trees.
Public trees, got it.
And we have some, it's not a lot of money, but we also came up with the idea through the green team that when you guys have done planting days, what about a volunteer tree planting day?
I've been trying to get that started for years.
We actually
could
did
just
do one
do
in the
it.
park.
Yeah.
Right? So we could plant, if there are tree wells, if there are street tree locations that,
Fortunately, G3 sucked the life out of
You guys. It's okay. So, the other part of it is like, it's one thing to investigate afterwards. At that point, you're just crying over spilt sap. I'd like to get ahead of the curve so that I don't have to and other people don't have to agonize over the death of a tree, like what's going on Plumas and what happened on Monterey and what happened all over town. I'd like to get ahead of it so we can make better consensus decisions about what goes and what can be done to save a tree instead of how fast can we cut it down before anybody notices.
Well,
I take exception with that characterization.
yeah.
Oh, again.
Oh, no,
who's
I'm
the one
meaning
making
like the
these-
people who did it illegally.
Okay, but not the ones on the
No,
street.
but I think it needs a better review process.
Like I said, I went out and made sure that those were noticed because we'd been
And I
talking about
appreciate
trees.
that.
Yes,
And
thank
I
you.
understood that I didn't know at the time what kind of tree it was, what was dropping, but it was a hazard and a liability, and people had hurt themselves. And I knew that, and I walked out, and I almost fell on those seed pods,
On
Yeah,
the
no,
they're on
west
the ground.
side of the
They're
street.
dangerous.
and I almost fell. Because it's sloped. So I noticed that there's some, when we looked at the festival tree, there are some in the park, but it's flat, the walkway, so they're not as dangerous to walk on them.
It's still
Both
not a
of
great
those
tree to
trees
have
on
as a public
Monterey were
trail.
on flat ground.
No, they weren't. They're up Monterey from visitation. I mean, I almost fell.
No, I've slipped and fallen there before too.
But
My thinking is if we're going to put effort into trying to change something to do with the tree ordinance, it probably should be focused on maybe more tree health and management and education. Like growing up, my folks have a ranch, and so we have trees coming out of our ears. And the biggest part of tree maintenance management was dealing with things like sudden live oak death and other things where if a tree is sick, it doesn't matter whose tree it is. If it's within range of the beetles that are transporting the fungus that's killing that one to your tree, you better do something about it. So if we wanted to do something really helpful, like for example up on Kings, we've lost 2 live oaks in the last few years to live oak death. One behind me, one next to me. And so, I'm doing whatever I can to make sure my tree doesn't fall sick, for example. That's something that's probably a big thing to worry about, rather than worrying about who's cutting down. Like someone cutting down a eucalyptus tree in their yard is not as damaging to someone who's neglecting a live oak and then they get everyone within a quarter mile around them sick. and then they all have to come out. That's the type of thing that would worry me, and that I would want to say try to put energy into a tree ordinance. Is how do you educate people about that, and then how do you just say, hey, you have to take care of your tree, or we're going to have to do it for you and bill you, because otherwise you're going to kill every other one around it. That's kind of what worries me, and that's just simply because that's actually come close to happening to me.
No, I think you make a very salient point, Ross.
Where were you like 6 or 8 months ago?
Sorry, changing diapers.
No, I wanted to have more meetings and dig a little further at this.
It's something we can bring back up, I think. I think they made a first pass. And
in one ways I'm glad that the tree ordinance passed, because it's an improvement over what it replaced. And I think, staff did a really good job with the language as far as it went. But, as an environmentalist, I kind of agree with Michelle that it didn't really quite go far enough.
No, I think it didn't go far enough. But I think, like, if I was going to spend, if I only had a certain amount of money to spend and I was going to do some sort of inventory, I would want to also focus on, like, what's going to cause people to slip and fall and hurt themselves, especially our elderly contingent, and then what's going to kill the other trees around it because it's beetle infested or suffering from, live oak death or exploding dry rot or whatever the heck it is that these trees get. So those are the things that, like, I would want to focus on, rather than, okay, some idiot cuts down a tree in their backyard and they shouldn't have. We find them and then we move on. But if somebody is neglecting a tree and it's going to get other trees sick, then you really need to take care of that. And that's kind of where I would want to put the effort in terms of, Rev 2.0 of the tree ordinance.
Is anybody taking notes for our next tree ordinance meeting?
That would have been smart.
Always over here taking notes.
She records every stupid thing we say.
All right. Let's move on.
It's frustrating. I feel your frustration, Michelle.
It's more than frustration. It's pain.
Yeah.
No, I think we all get that.
Subcommittee reports and reorganization.
I joined the Dark Skies.
We haven't met yet, though, have we?
No.
Okay.
Open space, we haven't met. We have not met yet.
CAP hasn't met.
Climate action plan, do you guys have an update?
No, we haven't met. I'm still waiting to see our benchmarking ordinance.
I got a new version back just this afternoon. I'm hopeful it's almost ready to go out.
Nice.
We have spent a lot of time in the last couple of months addressing the tenant-owner concerns that were raised, investigating how significant of an issue that is for us here, and it turns out it is a very significant.
It is a very significant issue, yeah.
Portion. In a lot of other cities, they haven't dealt with it directly. So we had to do some additional searching and had some additional calls with sustainable real estate consultants and got some good advice and think we have some solutions. So
I think
Karen and I are going to be meeting tomorrow morning with a couple of folks, including the city attorney, to talk through those potential changes and see if they are all agreeable and
I think I'm gonna throw you a wrench here, and I really think that the committee should review it before it goes to legal.
I don't think that's going to be possible.
Okay. I just wonder where is our input? I mean we've talked about some things and given feedback on a few points during various meetings and things, but I just feel like we're going to get the thing and it's going to be, here it is, it's done, it's the 11th hour, your feedback is not incorporatable at this point.
Having the workshops and meetings.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, there's a difference between going to a workshop and a meeting and kind of like theorizing about what should and should not be in it and actually reading the language.
Well, we gave a lot of feedback last meeting.
I was going to say the 2x, well, not really 2x2. The subcommittee meeting with the council and the OSEC meeting last month and Planning Commission meeting last month, which was basically the same content as here, were all very much language copied directly from the ordinance or summarized into it. I don't think, besides for the new things that we've been working on based on the feedback from those rounds of meetings, that there's really going to be that much that is a surprise. I'm sorry that this is the way that the sausage making happens, but this is the process, and that's...
I'm totally fine with the sausage making. I would like there to be more sausage.
Okay, let's go on. Oh,
okay. I mean, I still think that there's a difference between talking about the language in bits and pieces and actually sitting down and reading the ordinance. And at some point, I would like to sit down and read the ordinance.
Well, it sounds like we're
going to
and at some point you will be able to sit down and read the ordinance. I've heard you.
Okay.
This is where we are at. You will see it as soon as you can see it.
Okay.
Carl, do you want to speak about events? Since you did your first one and it was really successful.
Yeah, so the day in the park, I think, was very well organized in general. Attendance was really good from our little friends, I think, with the booth. And I guess who was there?
Everybody, just about.
Pretty much everyone. We even had a representation from Ross's solar panel, which charged up my iPhone. That was good. Yeah, I think overall a good showing. We had, I don't know what the actual tally was for the giveaways for the 4.
I think it was 4.
Yeah, 4. Yeah. Okay. But overall, I think it was a really successful event. I think Adrian would appreciate giving out more of those power surges, but yeah. So as an advertisement,
sign up for home intel so I can get these things out of my office.
As an advertisement, do that.
I signed up. I just didn't do anything with it.
I went through the whole.
That was that. I think Michelle.
Did you come bring me your proof and get your free power strip?
I will.
Wait, if I already am doing it, can I come get a free power strip?
If you have a home intel welcome letter and have not yet claimed your free power strip, please come show it to me.
I will check my email.
Find that letter. Okay. And then Habitat Restoration Days, do we have the dates set for our new ones, our upcoming ones?
Yes, so we can do one on December 7th or December 14th, preferably December 14th, a planting day.
I won't be here either day, so...
So Ariel prefers December 14th, so any objections?
Are there committee members who will be able to lead the charge on that? I'm going to be out of town.
So the rundown is I met with Ariel, and we're going to do a planting on San Bruno Mountain because he has starter plants that are good for San Bruno Mountain, and he doesn't have any other plants that would be ready, like any more established plants, because they've had quite a few bigger projects come through. So we're limited by, if we want to do a planting day, and he recommended one of those 2 weekends that he's available. So we don't have many other options. I'll be available, and he's used to running them, so I think we were going to check to see if anyone here has a preference, and then I was going to work out the dates with him and kind of knock those down and go from there.
I was planning on being around during December time, so any day works fine with me. So.
Oh, good.
Okay. Yeah, I was going
to... I guess just a question with respect to the planning aspects with Ariel. Sounds like he's got it under control. Does he need any other...
Yeah, I'll work with him on that. No, I'll work with him to advertise it and do some logistics. It's just he has the permit. He has to be there because he has an open permit for planting on San Bruno Mountain. So he's the most important factor for planting on the mountain. And then logistically, we can handle that in-house. But
sure.
I was going to bring it up here because I met with him recently. And then once, if anyone had any thoughts, but we're pretty limited with what they've got available in stock and the permit he has. So then but we should be able to get one out before Christmas.
Okay.
So and so I will just move forward with that then, and we'll start advertising it, in the next few weeks.
Great.
Awesome. Okay. Dark Skies Ordinance, you guys haven't met. Festival Tree Replacement, Monday. Oh, did I miss one? Education and Outreach. I always miss that one.
We haven't had either.
Okay. Festival Tree Replacement.
So, yeah, I don't know. Megan isn't here. Ross is going to try to make the meeting. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about
the 21st.
You and I had met versus what Ross and I had talked about. Just quickly because we're trying to get something planted if possible.
Yeah. So I did a site walk with Karen, and we discussed a couple of different locations. I feel that having the tree over by the flagpole, it's too wet there. And is that what you want me to talk about? Okay, it's very wet there, and it's wet there all the time. And I also feel that it would be a distraction. And during a festival type event, during like the tree lighting festival, people would be standing on a wet lawn, and I don't think it's a good place for the tree. The two other locations that I thought would be good that Karen and I talked about, one is sort of towards the picnic tables from where the tree is now, on the other side of the path. But actually, the better location, if it's possible to move the, oh, hey, there we go. Karen can point to the areas. Or do you have the pointer? I could just stand up and point to the area. Okay. So one of the areas that I was thinking of was right here, okay? And the prevailing wind is almost directly coming from where we are towards that. But the other place we talked about is actually right here.
Use your mic.
Okay? And moving the box and eliminating.
Your mic. Can you use your mic?
Yeah. Oh, well, sorry. I can't turn and use the mic at the same time. Anyway, of actually planting the tree here, and as it grows, we would eliminate these shrubberies or cut them down quite a bit and let it grow right here up and and then eventually remove the large tree when at the end of its life. So those were what I thought were the two best locations. The other place we did talk about too was way over here, but we didn't think that was
crowded.
Yeah. So what did they say about the box, Karen?
I have not checked yet, but the point I thought that you made that landed was that that's at a stop sign, because I said the festival tree is distracting too, and you as you're driving by, and you said, but you know.
Yeah. So when you're driving by the festival tree and it's lit up, it is distracting. And when it's over on the corner where you really should be paying attention going around the corner and you're already looking at the community board and everything else, I think it'll pose a hazard, a traffic hazard, and it also blocks your view across the park to oncoming traffic that's coming around the corner. Whereas at the corner where it is now, you've got a four-way stop. So you stop, you look, and then you go. And I think it's much safer overall there, and much more kind of where we have it now. The location where it is now is a good location. It's just there's a tree there. So we want this to grow up next to it.
I think we either need to just make the decision, tear the tree out and put the new tree there, or put the other tree somewhere else. You can't really have them crowded.
You can at first, because there's enough room there we walked it.
My understanding was the shrubs would just go.
The shrubs would
just
go.
tear them out.
Now.
Yeah, and the tree has room to grow up for a while before the other one gets taken out. We don't want to take the other one out until we're sure this one's going to take. It should be in there for at least a year or more before we take the other tree out.
It would have to be in there longer than that.
Well, within a year, we'll know whether it survives or not.
Oh, right, but we're not going to pull it out until it's bigger than that one. We're not going to pull that one out until the new one is bigger than that.
We might. Depends.
That's a whole different decision, luckily. But
I think we can make that decision when we get there.
Yeah.
Looking for your feedback, Ross, since Megan's not here, on that.
I didn't really like it there because we already have the tree there, and the tree that's already there will probably outlive all of us. So it's not sick. It just isn't really a great choice for a festival tree, but it's a tree. And if we're talking about not wanting to tear down trees, I really don't want to tear down that one. And
It should be the climbing tree.
Well, yeah, you know what? Actually, it's perfect for that. Kids can it's
Yeah,
not that tall. They're not going to hurt themselves that badly when they fall out of it. And the branches are widely spaced. And it's pretty sturdy. They can scamper up and down that thing like rodents all they want. I like the idea of the tree being over by the flagpole because it kind of is. It's already a central point. It's by the gazebo. It's a focal point. It would look cool. And people already slow down to read the signboard anyway. It's not going to make that much more difference if there's a tree there. And it wouldn't impact at all this tree. And we can put a path. We can do other things to make it so you could walk around it and do things over there. Here,
Problem is, it's not a healthy area for the tree, Ross.
Well,
It's a wet area. It's probably the deepest, wettest area of the park because when it was the lagoon, it was the deepest area of the water. The other thing that's of concern is we may be changing the entrance to Brisbane over the next 10 to 20 years based on high-speed rail and all the other plans I've seen and what's happening with the development out on the Baylands. And it may completely change. And the tree we plant, we're going to want it to be there for a long time.
well, but then the gazebo would move, the flagpole would move, everything would move. Then you plant a third tree, right? I mean, I don't see the entrance to Brisbane changing really quickly.
It could happen sooner than you think.
Flip a coin.
Just curious.
I meant to flip a coin.
Barbara may have a
Well,
point.
so I asked for feedback. Sounds like I've got it. There are 3 OSEC members, and so I know what both of you think. And there are 2 Park and Rec Commission members. So if we don't get consensus, we'll see what the majority says. Try to be there.
See on the
Express your
21st.
opinion. Otherwise, I know what you think. I mean, I'll definitely tell you. I don't want if someone's going to go, take some action and say, no way, I was against this. I don't want to do that. I want this to be something that
Right.
all of you want. But
Well, anywhere the tree goes will be better than not having a tree there. So it's it's a benefit no matter what happens.
Well, sounds like there's diverging opinion, but
well, we haven't talked to the Park and Rec commissioners yet. We're going to try to do. We're doing that on Monday. But there was diverging opinion between the OSEC members on that. Yeah.
Does Park and Rec have any sort of preliminary idea about where they want it, or they haven't talked about it yet?
No, we talked quite a while back about the other side of the walkway or by the gazebo, and they wanted to know what the impacts were. So I don't remember. It was so long ago. I don't know if they felt strongly one way or the other.
Well, depending on the type, I'm trying to remember the tree we decided on. I thought the tree we decided on was more water tolerant than this one.
I believe so.
I don't know. Sequoia dendron.
It's still got limits.
Okay, because we might end up having to dewater no matter where it goes. So.
Well, where this right here is, next to the current tree, is actually a pretty dry area. It's probably one of the higher, drier areas of the park.
And it's still too wet for that tree.
Actually,
I think
that's
it's
not what
mostly
the
wind
damage
shear.
to that tree was. It was that
Not
tree
what?
is a tree that does that flagging
Well, it's windswept.
in the wind.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
windswept. But it
I
also.
thought
it
you guys
also
said it was
doesn't-
wet roots too.
Yeah, it also
no,
doesn't
that's
like being
what
wet. That one does
John
not like
said.
being wet.
Oh, but you trusted his opinion.
Yeah, but that area is not very wet compared to.
No, the problem is the water table is fairly high. So it doesn't matter if that area is less soggy than the other area. You go down 10 feet and it's the same. So the taproot of the tree is going to be in water no matter where it is.
It's the root crown that's particularly vulnerable to moisture, excessive moisture. The deeper roots are better at dealing with.
So in either location, if there's grass, we'd have to modify the irrigation. This one actually would probably be a little bit easier because it's separated by a walkway. But
Right. So
in either case,
that's
we'd have to change the irrigation.
That's a plus of that area, yeah.
Well,
In any
at this point, it's been so long. I don't care. Just stick it in the ground.
Okay, well, let's move on.
Unless anybody else on the committee wants to give input, that's I'm sure we.
I was just curious who is ultimately going to make the decision.
Park and Rec, probably.
Well, it's kind of
Well,
been our
we're
Best.
planning-
I have no preference.
It's OSEC and Park and Rec, and I'm definitely asking at the staff level so we don't do something that somebody, council member or someone's going to say, what the heck are you doing? We're going to let them know before we do it.
Yeah.
It's very, everyone has a feeling about this festival tree and memories related to it, so I want
Sure.
it to be known that there's a recommendation from this subcommittee that
Mm-hmm.
will likely be what happens.
As Barbara said, I think we recommend we put a tree in the ground somewhere.
Right. I mean, there's a tree at a nursery, and if we wait too long, it may not be there, and
This is true. This
start
is true.
over. So.
Okay, Karen, do you want to talk about the PCA grant? I need to leave by 8:30, so that's why.
Me too.
Like, let's move it along.
Yeah.
So I just found out in the last day or two that we did not get the PCA grant.
Oh.
And
Oh.
let me make my screen brighter. It seems dark now. I was told that the committee was interested in the opportunity to restore and improve the watershed adjacent to the Crocker Trail. However, upon receipt of the application, the committee felt the scope of work was too limited to qualify for PCA grant funds, which I think maybe implies they're supposed to be regional, but we did talk about the state and county park adjacent and the access and all of that. Should there be plans for a more significant restoration project in the area in the near future, please consider applying for funds in a future grant round.
Okay.
So we just need to make it bigger.
I guess. You know.
Okay.
Tree ordinance, we already talked about. Benchmarking ordinance, we've already talked about. And beautification, Meg's not here. So let's go on to...
Actually, I want to make sure I caught a point made very early on in that Barbara is going to be joining the Dark Skies Committee, and I believe that is replacing Glenn on that committee. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Were there
Yes.
any other changes that needed to be made to subcommittees while we have reorganization on the agenda?
Not that I know of.
So,
What did I know of?
when
Okay.
were we planning on having the Dark Skies subcommittee meeting?
Well, I think we had said we didn't have time to, as staff, really start meeting with the subcommittee.
Until
I
after
said we
the-
wanted to meet on your own and kind of get some concepts lined up.
Oh, that's right, because of three of us, that's not quite enough to trip the,
Right, you're not a quorum.
meeting warning.
You can meet.
Okay.
Yeah, you're right. That's true.
So calendar items. I think. Is there anything on here we need to discuss?
Nope, it's just there mostly if you have something you want to make sure is on there or particularly talk about.
I'll just note that next month Beth will join us at the top of the agenda to talk about the potential for a climate reality presentation. I will update this to have the planting day on December 14th, and then hopefully we will still be able to make it to the second November council meeting with the building efficiency ordinance. So I believe that's on the 21st.
Thank
in
you for
November.
all your hard work on that, Adrian. I
Yeah.
know you've worked really hard on it.
So BEP, is that building efficiency?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go on to staff updates. Oh, chair and committee matters. Sorry. Do we have any chair and committee matters?
Not for me at this time.
Nothing from me.
Okay, let's move on to staff updates.
Okay, I have two. One, this is from Bosca, so more water department, but hopefully you guys can tell your friends and come next week. We're going to have a free landscaping class, harvesting rainwater and building a rain garden. So I'll make sure there's some good healthy snacks. So next Wednesday, spread the word. And Glenn, I brought up the pampas grass, and so I don't know if it's agendized, but it's definitely, we're talking about it at the weed management meeting in November.
Okay.
And so all the agencies, because the state parks are doing a effort towards that. And they did $60,000 removal on Montero Mountain last year, and so now they're going for San Bruno, and maybe also. So anyway, it's perfect timing. So I will be able to report back on that next month.
Okay. Did our mapping work? I mean, was it clear where the stuff was?
Yeah, and I need to put it together in probably a tighter presentation for them, but yeah, it seems great. And so we had an email exchange, and she's like, perfect. There's a lot of people thinking about that, so
Good.
so we'll see how that goes. I'll report back and let you know any updates, but that's November. I don't remember the date, but November, we're all talking about that. So
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for working on that, Glenn.
Sure.
Okay, anything else on staff updates?
Adrian still has poison ivy, or poison oak.
Oh, no.
It's almost gone.
Poison oak.
Almost cleared up. I actually forgot to prepare my notes, but I really think a lot of it has been reach codes and building efficiency program, really deep in the weeds of those things, and hopefully both are getting near the finish line. I know I mentioned last month that we are getting the Beacon Award. That ceremony is actually tomorrow at the League of Cities conference. And I think I talked about Green Team last month, didn't I?
Yeah.
Did I talk about Green Team last month? Yeah, some projects moving forward. So I think I will pass it to Karen. If anything else comes to mind, I'll let you know. But I don't think I really have a whole lot else.
Did we? Well, maybe we were going to meet because we talked about doing DocuSign on documents and not paper reduction within city functions, checking out trash pickers at the library. These are ideas that staff members that attended the CAP staff training came up with, and we kind of assigned them to smaller subcommittees that will look into them, and then we'll meet as a whole committee every 2 months. The tree planting, public tree planting, mobile work orders for water instead of paper, accounts payable, paperless. We talked about life cycle cost analysis of things that cost more and considering that when purchasing. More solar at facilities such as like pump stations in the marina, and maybe trying to push a policy regarding funding so that they don't all have to be paid for up front. Doing something different than mutt mitts at the dog park, pooper scoopers. EVs for public works, which you guys already started looking into. For trucks, hand dryers at some city facilities. Converting smaller equipment to electric, such as our own line trimmers, generators, and making O&M paperless. Let's see, there are a couple of other things.
I found that list, so I think you've hit most of them. We also talked about a commuter benefits program subcommittee. That was something that was handled by a previous staff member who left, so a couple of us are going to pick that up. And we also talked about better signage and bins and a couple of locations that are maybe lacking the proper bins in city facilities, some park and rec, mostly locations after school, paper recycling at the pool, office, those kind of things. I think you hit all the rest of them.
Incomplete Streets has a subcommittee looking at improving shuttle stops. So they're kind of focused on commute.org, but there's still the idea of, Samtrans stops too. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of funding available to do stuff like that. Okay.
Can we get an update for the next meeting on the, not really adopt a spot, but the litter collection thing that we did, that project? Like how it's doing and where the things are located.
Or where the trash cans are located and the recycle bins are located.
Yeah,
in the park.
If it's working or if it's something we want to put more focus on or expand.
Sure.
Okay, that'd be great.
Check in with that. And then I thought of something else that it kind of outside of this, but I had seen that there was going to be a ribbon cutting for a sea bin at the Pillar Point Harbor, so I went to check it out. It's there's a nonprofit organization called Sea Hugger that worked with the Harbor Commission and the Office of Sustainability to install this little device in the harbor area that collects microplastics and oil out of the water in the harbor area. So I don't know that that's actually something that we will be able to do, but I started asking some questions, and I talked with Keegan, and he seemed kind of interested in it, and so we're gonna try to see if we can learn a little bit more about it and see, obviously we need to find out what the costs are and the maintenance and all of that, but it was a pretty cool little device
A
that,
good thing to look into.
yeah,
Okay.
capturing.
Great. All right. Next meeting is,
Oh. Should I? Sure, yeah, open to the public. Sustainable San Mateo County has their Indicators launch event focused on climate change on Halloween. It's a luncheon at Orgle, actually, at their conference center at Orgle in Redwood Shores. So check that out on their website if you're interested.
okay. Next meeting, November 20th. Anybody want to move to adjourn?
Oh,
Wait,
wait for
you
it.
have more?
Don't leave. We need to adjourn to closed session. It'll be very brief.
Okay.
Okay, so motion to adjourn the closed session? Is that what
Yep.
I think?
Any seconds?
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 What was the closed session about?
We're doing closed session about